Hello and welcome. Thank you for putting on another episode of Sensational She-Geek live from Yancy Street. Today is Friday, February 5th, and I'm going to be talking about my weekly comic book picks, things that I read that came out this past week, premiering the 2nd and 3rd of February. And then I will be talking about some other things that I read, some announcements that were made, specifically the Jen Bartel Women History Month variants. I'm talking about those for a little bit, and then some other notes. You will also note that my episode title restructuring has changed again. I'm getting there. I'm getting to something that I think will stick, that I really like. This episode is going to be called 3B. Now, I know initially I had said that there was going to be Fridays were the first episode of the week and Mondays were the second, but that really didn't make much sense the more I thought about it, and now we're switching and we're going to do Mondays are the opening episode for the week and Fridays are the closing episode for the week. I think that makes a little more sense, covering what will be coming out and various pop culture news on Mondays, and then on Friday covering what did come out and whatever else I have to talk about for the week. I think that'll work out pretty well. So this is episode 3B, and we'll have 4A coming on Monday, which I believe is the 8th. Yes, it is Monday, the 8th of February. So this week we'll be talking about, like I said, comic book picks. And so I guess we'll go ahead and jump right into those. My number one pick of the week was Luna by Maria Llovet. I'm not sure if that's the right pronunciation. It could be Llovet, it could be Llovet, I don't know. It's 2 L's, O-V-E-T. She's Italian. If she listens to this, please tweet me or something. I don't like saying it wrong. This Luna number 1 was an absolutely gorgeous issue. I wrote this really long review about it after I read it because I couldn't stop thinking about the different reasons that this issue shined and was such an incredible premiere issue for a new series. I definitely feel like, for myself personally, creator-owned comics, i.e. indie comics, whatever you want to call those, things from not the, quote, big two of Marvel and DC. That is kind of the future of comics reading for me. I do read a lot of the Cape comics still, but it has declined a lot over the past few years, and I've definitely replaced every comic that I would be reading that was a Cape comic. I've replaced at least once over again with an indie comic that I prefer much more. So Luna is another indie comic that issue 1 off the get-go, I knew right away I was going to be completely into for the whole series. There's just too much amazing stuff happening in these pages to deny yourself reading this issue. It is for mature readers only. Do not give this book to your daughter thinking that, your kid daughter thinking that she'll have a nice little comic intro journey here. It's gonna bring up a lot of questions you don't want to have to answer. But it's an amazing issue. I think the things that you can go to my website, sensationalshegeek.weebly.com. I don't pay for it, so that's why it's got the Weebly sub tag on there. You can go to my website and see my review for Luna, which I'm posting today as well. I go over a lot of the things about Maria Llovet's style and how she signs pretty much every page she draws. It's a little bit of a reminder, it's a little bit of a reminder that artists and writers, but artists put so much time and effort into making these pages real in your hands, and we as readers oftentimes take it for granted, just flipping through the comic at our own pace, not really even looking for a second glance at many of the panels. And this Luna is a comic where you don't want to do that. You want to spend a lot of time appreciating the artwork and appreciating the symbolism and the panel flow. You get into Teresa, the main character's head, a lot, which is really cool. She's a woman who gets visions. Apparently she's had them her whole life, and she was told at one point to draw them, and the drawings never really have helped her understand them. So she's woken up in the desert and been taken in by this. It's a cult. I think they're called Children of the Sun or something like that. And it's 4 women and a man who they basically are communal lovers, and it's the 60s, it's the late 60s, classic hippie kind of stuff. So at the end of the issue, there is a lot of drugs that they take, including a mysterious liquid mixed with his blood, apparently, the cult leader's blood, who may or may not be some kind of Jesus figure. We'll wait and see on that. There is definitely a lot of biblical references and symbolism in this story. If you are into that kind of thing, I think you'll definitely be into this. If you're not a person who picks up on details, artistic details, and the kind of things that literary devices that writers use to make a story more enjoyable or play out in a less straightforward way, then this is probably not a comic for you. Llovet does an incredible job of using everything at her disposal to make Luna, I think, probably the best comic that it could be. And it really is my pick of the week. I can't recommend it enough if you're a person who's into these kinds of comics. And her art style is so incredibly unique and individual too. I can't get enough of it. And I'm really glad that she's handling everything on this series. She is, a lot of times, like, for example, with Joelle Jones, excuse me as I take a sip of water, Joelle Jones doing this future state Wonder Woman, which I'll talk about in a minute. She's doing the writing and all of the inking, the inking, the penciling and whatnot, but Jordie Bellaire is taking on the coloring. That's pretty common, and of course you have someone else doing the lettering. That's pretty common for any project in comics, that if somebody is taking on the art and the... it's my cat playing in the background. But someone is taking on the art and the writing of an issue or of a series, they tend to have an assistant of some kind helping with the other aspects of it. This is not the case for... excuse me, I was going to say Faithless. This is not the case for Luna. Luna is completely Maria Llovet's project. She handles the writing, the inking, the coloring, the design, the lettering even, it seems. It's all her, and I am blown away by the amount of effort that it clearly shows she's put into this for a very long time. It's also huge respect for her to taking that extra initiative and making sure that she has complete control over her vision so that it turns out to be exactly what she would like it to be realized. And with that all in mind, I think that this is going to continue being a fantastic series. I'm already adding this to my pull list next time I go into my comic shop. My cat is just losing her mind. I apologize. Luna by Maria Llovet is actually from Boom Comics. It's from Boom Comics, I believe. And yeah, I'm just really looking forward to seeing what she's going to do with this. I can't say enough praise about it. Again, my website, if you would like to read the review that I wrote about it, sensationalshegeek.weebly.com. I say a lot more stuff about it than I've even said here. So go check that out if you are interested. So now we'll go ahead and move on, as I said, to Future State Wonder Woman #2, which was written by, of course, Joelle Jones, drawn by Joelle Jones, colored by Jordie Bellaire. This is, of course, the finale, unfortunately, but she does such a great job, and I really enjoyed this little teaser, I think is what we'll just call this, these past 2 issues of Yara Flor. And we did finally they announced that the Joelle Jones run Yara Flor Wonder Girl series is going to be starting mid-May. I think it was the 18th is when it comes out. And I have a solicitation for that here. Joelle Jones has posted the cover for issue 1, which features Yara in her Wonder Woman outfit, and some kind of Amazonian symbolism and figures in the background who we have yet to really identify. But here's a solicitation. It's kind of long, so I'll just kind of skip around with the important parts. Well, you will see. It says, raised in the far-off land of Boise, Idaho, Yara has always felt something has been missing from her life, and now she is headed to Brazil to find it. Little does she know, her arrival will set off a series of events that will change the world of Wonder Woman forever. Her return has been prophesized, and with that prophecy comes the undivided attention of the benevolent gods from pantheons beyond. Danger lurks around every corner, but is this young hero ready for her journey? Find out in the debut issue you already cannot miss. But before Wonder Girl arrives in the land, okay, yeah, and the rest of that is pretty much, we know Infinite Frontier number 0 comes out March 2nd, and it's going to have a Yara Flor Wonder Girl story, I guess, in it, not Wonder Woman, since that'll be kicking off the Infinite Frontier series she's getting that starts May 18th. And then if you would like more Yara Flor, they added a bit in here, of course, that she's got these 2 Wonder Woman Future State issues, and you can also see her in Future State Justice League 1 and 2. Issue 2 is coming out this coming week, as well as Future State Superman Wonder Woman 1 and 2. Issue 2, I think, is coming out the following week. And then, of course, there was the rumors some time ago that I think it was Wonder Woman Annual number 4 or something like that, or possibly it was just number 1. I think it was just number 1. That came out last year around the time that Mariko Tamaki started her run on this Wonder Woman DC series. And there was all these rumors that this child at the end of for some reason they had it go over Brazil. I guess they were trying to tease Yara Flor just a little bit there. They had they had just panels of Brazil and this kid running along the beach, and it was a slightly brown toned skinned kid. And so people were saying, oh, it's Yara Flor's first appearance. And I think as we're getting closer and closer to seeing her actual origin in the Wonder Girl series coming up, I don't think that is going to turn out to having been her. Unless she possibly was born in Brazil and then ends up in Idaho. I don't know. We'll see if this is some kind of lost identity thing, or if she really does fully step up into the role of being Wonder Girl from being just kind of a normal kid in Boise, Idaho. I feel like there's got to be more to it than just she steps up into the role. Possibly something like she's, I don't know, a reborn Amazon or something. I don't know. But I'm really excited to see what Joelle Jones has coming, because she did such a good job with this last issue of Future State Wonder Woman. She gave us so many little tiny teasers of things that we might be seeing in the future of the Yara Flor comics. So I'm super excited with that. And also remember, we're still getting that CW TV series about Wonder Girl Yara Flor. So that was actually announced before Future State even really happened, before it really started, which was kind of surprising. And I think that was a good call, because she has been a hit. People love Yara Flor. Joelle Jones is everyone to thank for that, because she has done absolutely everything to create Yara. For probably, it's been some time that she's been working on her now, so her efforts have paid off, and Yara Flor is a success like they predicted, and I'm excited to see what they do for this CW Yara Flor Wonder Girl show coming up at some point in the future. But until then, again, you can find Yara Flor in the Future State comics, this Wonder Woman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and then Justice League. I want to touch very shortly, possibly, we'll see here, on Far Sector number 10, which came out this past week, and I had the beautiful cover by Yasmin Putri. It was a gorgeous variant cover. Far Sector, of course, is by N.K. Jemisin and Jamal Campbell. Jamal Campbell does all of the interior coloring and artistry. It's absolutely gorgeous. His art style he was one of the creators of Naomi alongside Brian Michael Bendis, and if you can picture what Naomi's design looked like, his art style is super perfect for a spacey Green Lantern story like Far Sector. Throughout Far Sector, as it's been going since, I think it was January 2019 is when it started. We're on 2 years now. Ugh. And it's not going to be till June when it's over. Finally, we get to see what the end is. Since the beginning of Far Sector, it has been so many things back to back that have been shockingly relevant, and it's partially coincidental and partially, I'm sure, Jemisin and Campbell wanting to talk about certain relevant political and social things that are going on in our own world. In the past, it was stuff about police reform and police brutality, which was issues that came out in a very, very key moment in American history in the past year or so. And then we have now, in issue number 10, we have, they're tackling the subject of people falling for the comfort of fascists and voter suppression. I'll just let that sit for a second, because that's two very relevant things in our world right now. Of course, we are plagued with many people here in this country, and gosh, throughout the world, who still find it comforting to basically see that one sect of their own people are under the thumb of a basically dictator, and we've been able to drop that particular leader, thank goodness. But also voter suppression, the way they handled that in Far Sector is kind of funny in a sense, because it's the race of people who are being suppressed are the digital people. So it's like a funny thing. They don't really bother explaining it that much, because you just kind of have to accept it as it is. They're just digital people. So to suppress their being able to vote during the voting time, they slowed down the internet speeds so that the digital people couldn't make it to the voting location on the digital network. They would have to go in person, and they can't go in person. And hey, what else does it sound like where people couldn't go voting in person? They had to find a different way to vote, and that means to do that was being suppressed. Sounds a lot like our vote by mail stuff we experienced this past fall. Gee. I gotta give major props to Jemison and Campbell for figuring out a way to brilliantly tie in the idea of voter suppression into a space age and completely alien, literally comic world. They did it brilliantly, and I'm really glad to have seen them do that. I'm excited to see what other topics they're going to touch on in these last two issues, and how they're going to wrap up the series. Joe, as we already know, the Green Lantern Joe Mullen is already in Far Sector, he's already in Future State Justice League, so we'll see her in the second issue of that this coming week, if you would like to see the supposed future of Joe. And then I believe after that we don't really have any idea where she's gonna be besides the end of Far Sector. I don't know if they have any plans for her in Infinite Frontier. If you know anything about that I've missed, please let me know, because I would love to have more Joel Mullen Green Lantern in the future of comics. King in Black Return of the Valkyries #2 was another really fun comic this week. I super very much enjoyed. It's of course following a couple different Valkyries now. We have Jane Foster, who is the new Valkyrie, who's a little bit of a different kind of Valkyrie than anybody else has ever been. She has kind of accidentally rescued the new Valkyrie, who's actually not new. She's new to the comics, but she is one of the oldest Valkyries from the original Valkyrior. I don't know if I said that right this time. And I don't know if we actually have a name for her yet. I'm honestly not sure. I probably just missed it, but this new Valkyrie, she's, as I've said before, based off of the MCU's Tessa Thompson Valkyrie a little bit. And we get a little bit more into her history as a Valkyrie as she goes to Valhalla, and she's in Valhalla with this issue with Jane, talking to Brunhilde, and Brunhilde, who is the original Marvel Valkyrie, as far as our timeline goes. Brunhilde tells her that they thought that she had run away when really she had gone off with her lover, and they had kind of been disappeared into the body of a celestial that Noel once inhabited and is still connected to and gets the powers from his sword, from. Something like that. It was honestly, there's a little bit of faltering in the story about how all that kind of happens, in my opinion. But that's okay, we'll just kind of go with it. Basically, they just need to break off Noel's connection with this dead celestial body. So they need another Valkyrie's help to do that, and they go and they get Hildegard, who is already on Earth fighting the King in Black invasion. And she looks great. She looks like this is the easiest, most fun thing she's ever done. She's smiling, swinging her axes and stuff around, just looking like she's having the hell of a time. So I'm excited to have her, hopefully fun attitude added to the group. We also have Danny Moonstar, who is a character who we finally see in this issue, but she's not in her Valkyrie form. Last time we see Danny as a Valkyrie, she is of course Hela's Valkyrie, and her powers only activate when Hela desires, so Hela would have to be involved somehow with King in Black. She being somewhat Queen of the Dead type situation, I would expect her to be very pro all these deaths that kind of are happening, but at the same time, I don't think she would be very pro end of all things, total darkness across the land, because then there's no one left to die, and there's probably no Hela left either, so I don't know, maybe Hela will get brought into this, but if Dani's gonna be a Valkyrie, she'll have to be in some minor way at the very least. Right now it's just Dani being a badass, running around using her standard mutant powers of seeing people's fears and desires, to help try and fight as much as she can. And then in the end, you get the new Valkyrie, you get Jane, who pops up to find Hildegard, and it turns out that Hildegard is right in the same neighborhood as all of them, so good stuff. We also find out that the new Valkyrie / old Valkyrie we just discovered is the original wielder, I believe, of Yarnborn. Yarnborn is an axe he's been passed around. He's an Asgardian weapon. Canonically, I kind of thought the current owner of wielder, I guess you should say, of Yarnborn is Donald Blake in the somewhat faltering Donny Cates Thor issues. The first arc of that Thor turned out to be entirely for Fortnite, and this second arc doesn't really make sense how Donald Blake is whooping literally everybody's ass. He's Donald Blake. He's not whatever. It's a stretch. But he has Yarnborn, I thought. Past owners of Yarnborn include Baron Mordo, Kang the Conqueror, the Apocalypse Twins, Thor, and Unworthy Thor, and that's Thor pre-wielding the hammer, and then Odin's son, Unworthy Thor, and then Captain America. This is also kind of brings up another thing. I think, Jason Aaron is writing this. He's co-writing this. And he, for a very long time, was the guy who everybody knew as the Thor writer. Now, when Donny Cates was announced as the new guy to be doing Thor, Jason Aaron did King Thor to wrap up his Thor run, which was, I think, just 4 issues, and then tapped out and went on to do Avengers, which was kind of an odd choice, in my opinion, to go from Thor to Avengers, because Thor stars in Avengers. So, and it turns out that was kind of Jason Aaron not giving up the reins to Thor the way that he says he was. It's kind of odd to see what things are connecting to King in Black and what aren't, and what's connecting to what Donny Cates is doing in King in Black versus what he's doing in Thor, because they themselves don't really connect. We have, like I said, we have Yarnborn in Thor, but also in King in Black. We have Jane Foster in Thor, who I believe is going to go search out Odin in the next issue, but then we have her here in King in Black, Return of the Valkyries, searching for this celestial body, and she's going to go find Hildegard, and they're going to go cut that connection that Noel has with that celestial body. So it's kind of funny, Jason Aaron seems to be really purposely kind of contradicting everything Donny Cates is trying to do with Thor. And to kind of add on to that, he's also changing Thor's origin, supposedly, in the Avengers issues. Now, I got kind of bored of his Avengers somewhere in the early 30s or mid-30s, and stopped reading before they got into the current Phoenix stuff they're in right now. But apparently, it ties into a lot of stuff that Jason Aaron did back at the beginning of what they called Marvel Legacy and stuff like that. They had all these, they had that one long Marvel Legacy issue, and it had all the Avengers from 5 million BC or whatever, and you get Odin, who had the Phoenix Force, and you find out that they're lovers or something like that. It's a whole thing, and I guess there's a new origin of Thor based off that, and it's all Jason Aaron's thing. Meanwhile, Donny Cates is trying to do this other stuff with Thor, while Jason Aaron's is kind of ignoring it, and I don't know, this is the editorial, I know there's the whole thing about, it takes place either 2 weeks before or 2 weeks after. It's what Stan used to say about tie-ins versus ongoing series. But there just seems to be a bit of a problem with Marvel editorial kind of making things make sense right now. That's not even going into the somewhat not mild racism / questionable symbolism that was put into the last issue of Immortal Hulk, which was definitely not an accident. I feel like there were two things that he had done that lined up right next to each other as being racist, and if he had done one of them, it would have been an accident, but if he did both, there's no way. How did nobody catch that? You can look it up and see it. We don't need to give it any more air. But yes, Return of the Valkyries #2, I definitely really enjoyed. We know that Brunhilde will be fighting Null, possibly, based on the final issue's cover. I don't know if she's going to end up coming back to life after this, or if she's going to end up staying in Valhalla. We'll have to kind of wait and see how that pans out, but either way, it seems that we've got ourselves a new Valkyrie in this old one who's come back, and I hope to see her stick around for a good long while. Talking about Gwenom vs. Carnage #2, another King in Black tie-in, the number one thing I have to say is I have massive appreciation for colorist and designer Rico Renzi. He has been the colorist for Gwen Stacy in this Earth 65 universe and everything that comes with her since the beginning, since Gwen Stacy as Spider-Woman / Spider-Gwen first became a thing in, I think, 2015 or 2016? I think it was 2015. His coloring and design aesthetic for her Earth 65 has made her world iconic and easily recognizable. I'm sure the artists have a lot to do with that, but when it comes down to it, it's really, in my opinion, it's his coloring that sets off the major differences between the 616 and his 65. Or I should say her 65. It's Gwen 65. He's got some really awesome merch. If you want to look him up, it's Rico Renzi, RICORENZI. Some of the merch that I have is we have a magnet it's Kraven the Hunter wearing, instead of his just regular, hunter's vest thing, it's made out of Garfield's head. And it says, "I hate Spider-Man and also Mondays." So it's a funny little joke thing about Garfield hating Mondays and also Kraven the Hunter hating Spider-Man. Okay, you get it. I also have a Ghost Spider / Spider-Gwen, whatever she's running by these days, sticker. I think it's technically Ghost Spider because it's the black suit, not the pink and white suit, or not the white-based suit. And then I also have a coaster that has the famous line from Queen's Killer Queen song, "Dynamite with a laser beam," and that sounds very simple, but it's that coaster has everything on it that I love about Rico Renzi's design and coloring, bright neon, flashy, just really cool stuff. I like looking at it. It sits over on display because I don't want to use it. Are you kidding? I would destroy it. It's gorgeous. He pops around to cons, or rather did before the pandemic started, so hopefully we'll be back to being able to see him at cons at some point in the next year or two when things are somewhat normalized again. But just more of a general Gwenom versus Carnage thing. On one note, I would like to say, why is she called Gwenom in this? She has never been called Gwenom canonically in the Marvel universe of any world or Earth. As far as I know, that's never been... She's been Ghost Spider for the past at least 10 of her own issues. And before that, she was Spider-Gwen based on the Earth 616 people's idea of her, and Spider-Woman based on the Earth 65's people idea of her. So Gwenom really doesn't fit. I think I gotta assume that was called Gwenom because they were trying to get more people to buy the series. If they're like, okay, Gwenom, I get it. It's Venom Gwen. Gotcha. Even though that's not really what her suit is. It's spider things. But anyway, the other note I wanted to make was that Gwenom vs. Carnage #2 is also another proof, is further proof that the King in Black tie-ins continue to be superior to the main series for some reason. The thing that made me really recognize that in this issue particularly was that Null was so creepy. Oh my god. He's not creepy in King in Black compared to this. Not at all. This shit, oh my god. This was like something out of a horror movie. Holy crap. Excellent kudos to the artists there and whoever came up with that design, because that shit, oh my god. That is so much creepier than the Null we're seeing in Donny Cates' own book. That's crazy how much creepier that is. Anyway, Gwenom vs. Carnage #2. I'm really enjoying the series. I think the first issue sold out. I'm not sure about the second one. But I would definitely recommend it if you're a fan of Gwen Stacy of Earth 65 and her exploits. It's basically Earth 65 Mary Jane accidentally slips into the King in Black takeover of Earth 616 while Gwen is trying to figure out what's going on and get back to her own Earth. She accidentally sucks MJ into that Earth with her, and MJ gets taken over by one of Noel's symbiotes and becomes kind of the new Carnage, which is really a cool concept. I'm not sure how actually Carnage she is, if you can really say that. But I like to think that you can kind of make that work. And again, Rico Renzi's coloring really, really, really makes this stuff work far better than I think it would otherwise. Appreciate the heck out of Rico Renzi when you see his work. Do it. There were a few Reign of X books that came out this week, X-Men books. The one that I would like to talk about, though, is X Factor. I've talked a little bit before, at least written on my site before, how Leah Williams does a phenomenal job of getting the characterizations of her team members and how they each play into being an important role on the team. This issue is no different. She does that again. She makes every character important for some reason or another, and every character matter. And spoilers if you haven't read it, but most of them end up dead in the end because, let's see, you get Siren she's taken over by the Morrigan, who they gave the whole white page about who the Morrigan is and what her whole mythology is, and basically she takes over people's bodies when they die, and then that's the next Morrigan. So Siren is the Morrigan, and that's why she took over Polaris's mind in the last issue, and in this issue she killed Dakin. Well, she tried to kill Dakin. And then at the end she kills, let's see, she set up Northstar and Aurora in a creepy as hell kind of pagan ritual looking thing setup. Dead, of course. Looked like she slit their wrists, or possibly made them slit their wrists, so that's pretty dark, and put some flower crowns on their head. It's some dark stuff. And then you get Dakin, who finally was able to make out a little bit with Aurora. Dakin and, let's see, you end up with Dakin, Kyle, and Eyeboy are the only ones who are left alive at the end, huddling in the dark, hoping that Siren won't hear them and won't come kill them. And I actually realized after reading it, Kyle's not a mutant, right? I'm pretty sure that was the whole thing. I remember when he and Northstar got married, that was like a big deal, was that it was a human marrying a mutant. And also the fact that there was like one of the gay weddings in Marvel Comics, one of the first or whatever. So if Kyle gets killed here, it's the end of Kyle. So hopefully Kyle won't get killed here. He can't connect with Cerebro unless they figured out some way for Cerebro to pick out humans too. I don't know. I don't think that's a thing. So hopefully Kyle won't get killed, because that would be bad. And also I started realizing that they're gonna start seeing a flaw in the resurrection cycle sort of situation they have going on, that X Factor's gonna have to address. I think that we started seeing it a little bit. People are all going to start dying willy-nilly because they realize that they can treat life like their own personal Groundhog Day, which, by the way, if you're kind of tired of Groundhog Day as a movie, try Palm Springs on Hulu. And I think that they're going to have a lot of problems with people just kind of dying over and over again through different means and ways because they can, and what's to stop them if they can just get resurrected? They can do literally whatever they want and have no consequences. So in that sense, Storm definitely has the right idea that they need to start treating life with the same amount of value as they did before the resurrection protocols were a thing. I'm sure that's already something that Jonathan Hickman knows is going to be a problem and has some kind of plan with, so we'll just wait and see how that plays out. And the last comic that I want to talk about this week, just briefly, was Sonyaversal #1. We knew going into this that this was going to be a wild and crazy journey. It wasn't what I expected, but it was a wild and crazy journey. It's basically, it starts off with this one Sonya who we learn, I think, is Orange Sonya. I think that's correct. She is the protector of this world, and she has some kind of cyber powers as well. She tries to stop this fight between Purple Sonya, who is some kind of gigantic mecha Sonya, who's driven by another Sonya. They were fighting Green Sonya, who is this, like, prehistoric Sonya who can turn into a dinosaur. A giant dinosaur, not just a dinosaur, it's a giant dinosaur. So they were fighting in Orange Sonya's city, and then this other Sonya shows up who's like some kind of angelic heavenly thing, and tells Orange Sonya that she has to send her on this mission. And the mission, you find out, is to go and I guess kill Red Sonja, the Red Sonja that we know from the comics. And you find out in the end that this mysterious angelic Sonja has been sending so many other Sonjas from across, whatever realms or universes or whatever, to kill Red Sonja, and she has stopped every single one of them, and so that's why she keeps sending more. It's a really odd concept, and I have no idea what's gonna happen. I imagine Orange Sonja is gonna end up teaming up with Red Sonja and taking down whatever angelic-looking Sonja is doing, but we don't know anybody's motives right now, really, except for Red Sonja and a tiny bit of Orange Sonja. She just wants to live and have her world be not destroyed by other Sonjas, so it'll be really funny, I guess, going forward. I'll see how the second issue is. This was entertaining. We'll see if the second issue holds up to the first, and kind of go from there. But it's, yeah, so far so decent, so decent. A comic that I really want to talk about that came out this week on Volume was A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. It is written by a female Iranian writer who is making it into a film / already did, I'm not sure. But it is one of the most beautiful and simple comics I think I've ever read. If you have looked at Dracula, it's Dracula Motherfucker is the series, okay? Sorry, it's not a series, it's a volume. It's a graphic novel by Alex de Campi. That is another really simplistic, symbolic, equal parts storytelling in the art and writing, kind of vampire story. And A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night is even more simplistic, and it's just so beautiful and geniusly simple. The writing is almost like a poem. Each issue is like, it's just a poem, and I'd be curious to read the text alone without looking at the art and see if it makes sense at all. The vibe that I got reading it was that the art and the story were telling the art and the script were telling equal parts of the story. And again, extremely, extremely simple art. The second issue of the volume, you get into a little bit more complex art, but that was a bit of necessity since you have the character in the beginning is basically a shriveled up person, starving looking skeleton kind of being. So you have to have a little bit more detail out of necessity there, but it's still just incredibly, phenomenally simple and beautiful of a comic. That was one that came out in 2020. I believe that parts 1 and 2 both came out in 2020. But part 1 didn't get all the copies that were ordered delivered to stores. It was extremely under-delivered. I'm not sure why. It was just something that's been a problem in the past since the pandemic started. That makes sense. But it was it was a victim of one of those incidents, so a lot of people didn't get part 1. I was able to get part 2, and now I have the volume. So I'm really, really excited to have that in my collection. And I'll look more into the film version of it and see kind of where they're at with that, or if it's out already and what the deal is. Moving on, I want to talk about Jen Bartel's Women History Month covers. They announced the first 4 of them last week. I think it was actually last Friday, so hopefully we'll be getting the next 4 coming up soon. It's a really cool concept. I was right about the corner boxes. I think I may have actually said it on this blog at some point, on this podcast. I thought that she was going to be doing corner boxes based off of some teaser she put up of a blotchy She-Hulk, just straightforward face. And I was right, that was a corner box. So each of these 8 covers that she's doing are going to have the main figure is the female character of choice in an outfit from a fashion of the year that she premiered in comics. The corner box is them in their modern super suit, just the kind of bust shot, headshot thing. So the 4 that were announced, we already knew who these characters were going to be. It was going to be, we have She-Hulk, Jennifer Walters. She came out in 1980, Savage She-Hulk #1, and that is going to be on Avengers #43, and she's in a very smart-looking woman's suit. Patsy Walker's Hellcat from 1944's Miss America Magazine #2. She became Hellcat in Avengers 144 in 1976, and this cover will feature her on Iron Man #7. The third one is 1980 Emma Frost White Queen from Uncanny X-Men 129. It happens to be the same issue, I believe. as somebody else's first appearance. I want to say Kitty Pryde's first appearance. And so that's 1980. She's in a beautiful runway-looking type gown, and that'll be on X-Men number 19. And the fourth one was Silk number 1, and that's obviously Cindy Moon's Silk. Her first appearance was 2014's Amazing Spider-Man number 4, which was part of the original Sin event. The 4 that are remaining, we have Black Cat number 4 is going to be obviously Black Cat. Her first appearance was 1979's Amazing Spider-Man number 194, so I imagine there's going to be some deep cut diving 1970s dress that she'll appear in. One that we're not sure who the character is going to be on the cover is actually Black Panther number 24. The guess you could make would be Shuri, and as either Black Panther or as herself, I guess if she's going to be in just fashion of the era, that would be her first appearance was 2005 as Shuri in Black Panther number 2. It was Black Panther volume 4. And then she, of course, appeared as Black Panther in August 2009 in Black Panther volume 5, number 5. But if she's going just with the year of the first appearance, the true first appearance, it'll probably be the 2005. So it'll be likely Shuri, or due to the somewhat bad taste that actress Letitia Wright has left in people's mouths around her character's name, it's possible that she will choose either Nakia and or Okoye, the leaders of the Dora Milaje. They first appeared together in Black Panther Volume 3, Number 1, which was 1998. I own actually that Volume 1 of Black Panther by Christopher Priest. He really put T'Challa on the path to be what he is today in that series. The volume is pretty good. I can see why it caught on for sure. It was Priest showing the life of a wealthy black man, T'Challa, through the eyes of a white man, average white man, Everett K. Ross, who we've seen already in the MCU, played by Martin Freeman. So it was something that a lot of readers could relate to, and telling T'Challa's story in an understandable way. It's a fun read. If you see it, definitely pick it up. Then 2 more issues that they have for this Women's History Month variants. That'll be King in Black Ghost Rider number 1. I have to assume that this will be featuring the one female Ghost Rider there has been, Alejandra Jones, who premiered in Ghost Rider number 1, which was volume 7. That was 2011 during Fear Itself. I am not familiar with Alejandra Jones myself. Period. The last one is Spider-Woman number 10, which will of course be Jessica Drew's Spider-Woman. She first appeared in Marvel Spotlight number 32 in February of 1977, so I imagine she'll be in some 70s type outfit. I really, really enjoy Jen Bartel's art, of course, and the designs that she's been coming up for these first 4 Women of the Women's History Month variants are completely stunning. I actually have the She-Hulk one as my background on my phone right now because it is completely gorgeous, and I am absolutely in love with Jennifer Walters. But I can't wait to see what these other 4 are going to be. If these first 4 are any indication, they will be equally stunning, and I cannot wait to get my hands on all 8. It's going to be such a thrill to see them all together, and to have them in my hands myself. I've never been somebody who read Sandman comics by Neil Gaiman. I've been asked by people who read comics to read it all the time, but I'm just so overwhelmed by the massive amount of material that it is that I have never gotten the balls to actually start reading it. But thanks to my husband, I have the Death Collection now by Neil Gaiman, which collects her 2, I believe it was 2 miniseries that she had, and then a number of single issues and stories from various Sandman issues through the years. So that is going to be the start to my Sandman universe dive, and I will keep you updated on how that goes once I have the time to get started into Death. And I know I was talking Monday about Snowpiercer. I am still rereading those 3 volumes, and I will talk more about Snowpiercer, the comics, and the TV show on Monday's episode. And the last thing I think I have here that I want to go over is just very briefly comics coming out this coming week, which I'll talk more about on Monday. Notable things, we have our Radiant Black #1 indie series, Eternals #2, Future State Comics I'm following will be Kara Zor-El Superwoman, Justice League, and Dark Detective. Homesick Pilots #3 is one of my favorite ongoing indie series, as well as Bliss #5. Christopher Priest's Vampirella #17, X-Force #17 as well, Excalibur #18 by Teenie Howard, and then of course Daredevil #27 by Chip Zdarsky, with art by Marco Caccetto and probably another artist. But that series, woof, man, get on that. That is some good stuff. And that wraps up my podcast for today. It is, again, Friday, February 5th. I will be back with another podcast Monday, February 8th, where I'll be talking about such things like WandaVision, comics culture, Snowpiercer Episode 2, and things that are similar from the comics, Marvel's new phase that they're trying to do with Jason Aaron, sort of, we'll see how it goes, representation in comics, and next week's upcoming comics. Thank you again for tuning in. If you've made it this far, thank you very much for doing so. I hope you are enjoying your time listening. I am definitely enjoying my time making these. Kind of on a side note, I may be stepping back a little bit on my blog posts. It is a lot less time consuming, surprisingly maybe, to work on this podcast and to make notes enough for the podcast to make my recording of it fairly smooth. I'm probably going to have to split my time up a little differently soon, so I'm going to be focusing more on the podcast and less on blog posts. So if you follow my blog, try and maybe listen more. I don't know. Give me some feedback if you have some. Once again, my blog is sensationalshegeek.weebly.com because I don't pay for it. My Instagram is Anna with the Comics because my name's Anna. How are you? My Twitter is Savage She-Geek because sensational was too many letters. And I think that covers it all. Please let me know what your thoughts are. And I look forward to speaking with you about the next... I love these discussions we have. It's a good two-sided discussion, guys. I look forward to discussing things with you, have all things to do with comics and comics culture this coming Monday. Stay sweaty.